Now, speaking of media, let me thank a couple of people for standing in for me last week. James Morrow, I can see sliding into the man cave for the evening, and Steve Price as well filled in last week, which is great stuff, guys. Thank you very much. Let's go to Sophie Elsworth now in Melbourne, media writer with The Australian. And Sophie, this coronation coverage at the ABC, what were they thinking, right? I'm thinking, as I think someone was saying earlier on today, who did they think was going to be watching the coronation at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon? Not people who want to hear the Republican message.
Well, it was far worse than just a Republican message, Chris, I would argue. It was an absolute pile-on and hate fest of Australia, its history and the British monarchy. So the ABC is in a lot of trouble over this, Chris, and we have not heard the end of it. They've received over 1,000 complaints from Australians about this, which is unheard of for one particular show to receive that many complaints. The Ombudsman is taking a look at this now. There is an investigation that will be undertaken, but this is a shameful episode in the ABC's broadcasting history, where they really set out with an agenda that night. They wanted to smear the monarchy, smear Britain and our association with Britain, and really just pile on this country's history. And I thought it was absolutely appalling television. I just thought whoever made that editorial decision in there should be hauled over the coals, Chris. Well,
it shows that no one's in charge, right? That people just do what they like. The staff do what they like. And on this occasion, certain staff members got to do what they like. And you're right, there should be another A at the front of their name. They're so often the anti-Australia Broadcasting Corporation. Have a look at this clip, for instance.
That they are at the heart of the dispossession of the stolen land of our First Nations people and of massacres and attempted genocide in this country and others. That's really important.
The Australia with an Indigenous heritage, a British foundation, and the migrant richness of the migrant experience is a lovely idea. I don't know where that Australia is. We haven't lived in that Australia.
Come on, Stan. We all live in that Australia. Now, as you know, Sophie, I'm a Republican and not much in for this royal monarchy, but I hate that sort of Australia bashing. And what I loved about that clip when Craig Foster is talking is the bloke who was once the lefty hero, the musician Nick Cave, was in his suit, getting into his pew there at Westminster Abbey, happy to be there for the coronation.
Well, Chris, they may as well just have turned off that footage from London, because they made virtually no reference to it all during this hour. Now, I won't deny I'm a monarchist, but when you are covering these events, you need to be objective, Chris, and the ABC was anything but that. And I am sure there'll be a lot of questions to be answered at Senate estimates next week. David Anderson will be grilled on this.
Yeah, well, you've got to be respectful too. And most importantly, you just can't go around bashing the country day in, day out unless there's decent reasons, decent criticism, sensible criticism in the right context. Look, at the top of the program, Sophie, I showed some stuff I stumbled across last week, sitting around at home watching some, in isolation somewhere else actually, watching some ABC. Here's this Auntie Donna's Coffee Cafe, latest comedy. Have you seen any of this, Sophie? You got any idea how bad this stuff is, burning up our tax dollars?
Chris, I did see you talking about this earlier in your program, and it sounds like you had a pretty awful week there, trapped watching the ABC, which I must say I do a lot of.
I wanted to see Paul Murray live, and I wanted to see AFL 360, and I'm stuck there watching the weekly, and Auntie Donna's Coffee Cafe or whatever that is seems a bit tautologist to me, but it's just a shocker. They're in all sorts of strife, aren't they?
But, Chris, the thing that is serious here, this is our money that's been wasted on this absolute tripe that they're pushing out. It's disgraceful. There's far better way to spend that $1 billion and $6 billion, might I add, over the next 5 years that they'll get than pushing out this rubbish.
They are shockers, Sophie, and thank you so much for keeping right on their tail. We'll catch you next week.